Okay, welcome everybody. It's a great pleasure to address you today and welcome you to this virtual conference. Of course, the pleasure would have been greater had we been able to meet in person, but the coronavirus pandemic has caused and continue to cause enormous consequences across the globe. And I know you are all experiencing uncertainty and concern for what the future holds. Fortunately, there are silver linings in the coronavirus cloud for the profession. First, we are all in this together. Together, we are more resilient and better able to navigate and pass through these troubled waters. Your firms, your organization, your clients, and community are depending on your expertise. Small and medium-sized entities are increasingly reliant upon their accountants for business survival. A few words about SMEs. SMEs have been and they are the lifeblood of the European economy. But more than having a recent McKinsey survey worried they may not be in business in 12 months. Few SMEs appear optimistic about the prospect for improvement and times so given the views of the state of the economy. We need to consider both the immediate survival of SMEs and their longer-term strength. And when the crisis fades, the European Commission and member state government will need to help SMEs and strengthen their resilience. The European Federation of Accountants and Auditors for SMEs with 13 members throughout Europe, representing over 350,000 accountants, auditors, and advisors, has a responsibility to do everything we can to help Europe's small and medium-sized accountancy practice through this challenging time and can throw them smarter, stronger, and sustainable. As you know, IFA is encouraged to see that the European Union has a strategy to support the future prosperity of Europe SMEs, the European Union's new industrial strategy for a green and digital Europe. This strategy is designed to help SMEs transition digitally and sustainably. Solely, I am sure that the Dolor Monserrat, she will speak about this. But first, let me explain how IFA is supporting its member organization and SMPs, directly and indirectly. The first things that I would like to mention is that we are sharing resources. We know studying up today of the coronavirus crisis and implication is critical for SMPs to do their job. Our COVID-19 IFA response microsite provide the latest news, resources, guidance, and webinar to help SMPs by their organization, client, and customer. I know that you are visiting it in the last period, but I hope it will be useful for you. And we are advocating on your behalf. For example, we are also directly addressing regulatory policy and standard setting issues on behalf of our members, SMPs, and the clients and businesses that SMPs serve a European state. We have published and promoted a position statement stressing the vital role of European Federation of Accountants and Auditors. Our member organization and their SMP members play in helping ensure the European economy and society comes out of the crisis smarter, stronger, and sustainable. You know that you know very well that liquidity and continuity are the pressing concern of many. Maybe most SMEs. They have been inundated with government's announcements regarding access to finance, tax relief, assistance with paying wages and salaries, and etc. SMPs stepped in advising SME clients on how to stay afloat and take optimal advantage of what is available. On the other hand, SMPs have helped clients with cash flow and financial options, technology assistance to support their remote work, and other forms of support beyond compliance. And SMPs can't forget business continuity plans that are based on the new normal. SMPs the current days are the trusted business advisor of SMEs. Today, this is truer than ever. And once this crisis is behind us, SMPs, quite with insights gained from multiple SMEs clients, are well placed to advise SME on how to make the green and digital transition by the European Union's new industrial strategy for a green and digital Europe. As you know very well, in the reporting domain, IFA is inputted to the revision of the non-financial reporting directive, which may culminate in the development of non-financial reporting standard, one for public interest entities and another for SMEs, the latter likely for voluntary use for any sector. This standard will play a key role in helping SMEs measure, manage, and report of their environmental, social, and governance performance. We are promoting, it's very important for us, we are promoting a career in SMPs. The opportunity for SMPs to grow in today's business environment is unprecedented. Digital transformation is enabling smaller accounting firms to reimagine the services they offer, but successful change is critically dependent on SMPs having the right mindset, skill set, and tool set. Key to this is attracting, developing, and retaining retaining the right people. Hence, we are leveraging insight from our larger member, such as the UK member ACA, to make this happen. We are asking you to support each other. Our community needs to come together during these difficult times, compassionately and concerned toward your colleagues and peers, foster community in the profession, and help colleagues and peers manage the physical and emotional stress of this crisis. On the other hand, we are here to help and serve. Keeping our staff and members safe and supported is our top priority. In this period, IFA is proud to serve its members and other professional accounting organizations around the Europe. Our profession is needed no more than ever. Your expertise and skill are invaluable to clients and employers as they mitigate the financial impact on this crisis. Our profession will be the key trusted, ethical, it's very important, and competent profession to guide the world to economic health in the future. Thank you so much for attending. Now, please, it's a pleasure for me to introduce our key speakers, Dolores Montserrat. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dolores, for your time and your consideration with IFA, with Europe, and of course with all member countries and organizations. I know your stressing agenda very well, and that's why my consideration is bigger, because you have decided to share your time with us. Dolores has a vast, impressive CV. She is a lawyer. She has several postgraduate degrees, and between other activities, she was a minister in the government of Spain, a very good minister. Thank you for that, Lord. In current days, is a very important member of the European Parliament. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. For us, it's very important, and you take the floor.
Thank you very much, Salvador. Good morning to everybody, and I want to thank the European Federation of Accountants and Auditors of SMEs and its president, Salvador Marin, for having invited me today as a speaker. During this last year, to the tragic loss of thousands of lives, we cannot forget that millions of jobs have been lost. Our memory is not enough to remember a crisis of this magnitude because we have not survived it. SMEs are a major part of the solution to the economic crisis. They produce 60% of the European Union's added value and account for nearly 70% of jobs. In 2018, around 23 million enterprises, that is 99 of European Union companies, were small and medium enterprise, and 93% were micro enterprise. They generate 4,300 million euros in added value and employ almost 98 million people in Europe. Large enterprises are currently experiencing difficulties, but they have many more resources and the flexibility to deal with them. By contrast, for SMEs, an adverse scenario could lead directly to their bankruptcy. Closing down an enterprise does not only involve bankruptcy procedures and job losses, along with the personal and family consequence that this entails, but also the disappearance of a series of very valuable, intangible elements of organization and management. All European Union policies now have to closely monitor their consequence for our SMEs. Entire sectors are being severely hit by the threefold crisis and its consequence: tourism, retail, transport, or industry, among others. The coronavirus pandemic has changed everything. We are in a threefold crisis: health, economic, and social. The European Union has responded to this crisis with high-impact measures to support member states. The Stability and Growth Pact has been made more flexible. The European Central Bank has set up new means for asset purchase. The state aid rules have been relaxed. The SURE instrument has been created to support job retention. The capacity of the European Investment Bank has been strengthened to allow SMEs more credit. A new financial framework for the period of 21 to 2070 has been agreed, and a recovery plan has been designed as a specific response to the pandemic. The European Union has complied with its duties. Now it has to wait for member states to design good national recovery plans, and that the funds will be used to maintain jobs, create new ones, and for the SMEs to be economically sustainable. On 10 March 22, on 10 March of this year, 2020, the European Commission adopted the new industrial strategy for Europe, together with an SME strategy and an internal market strategy. The industrial strategy has three pillars: a globally competitive industry, climate neutrality, and an industry shaped by a digital future. This strategy aims to support the European Union's industrial and strategic autonomy, which we consider to be of great importance as a new element to be mainstream in the European Union policies. The widespread view in the European Union is that SMEs are the backbone of the economy. The strategy aims to increase significantly the number of SMEs involved in the green and digital transitions, and the ultimate goal is to make Europe the most attractive place to create, grow and expand a new business, taking advantage of a strong and dynamic single market. To achieve its objectives, the strategy takes a holistic and horizontal approach, but also addresses specific needs. This strategy is based on three main pillars: capacity building and support for the dual transition, reducing regulatory burdens and improving market access, and improving access to finance. In terms of policy response, all political groups accept that SMEs face more difficulties than large companies do. In general, the smaller companies will face financing difficulties, including access to third-party financing and higher financing costs, problems in complying with bureaucratic burdens, difficulty in recruiting specialized staff, less experience and knowledge for adaptation to change, lack of market knowledge, which hampers the commercialization and internationalization of its activities, fewer resources and capacities for the economic exploitation of intellectual property rights, and a slower adaptation to technological change. Talking about the Green Deal, we cannot forget that even if for innovative SMEs, it will bring new opportunities to invest. For many others, mostly conservative or in more traditional sectors, the European Green Deal will rather be additional legislation that increase the accumulated administrative burden. The role of business organizations and service providers like you, accountants and auditors, is crucial in informing and supporting SMEs in this area. In relation, for example, to digitalization, while much is being done to support the digital transition for SMEs, there are some key challenges for SMEs compared to larger companies. So it is necessary to provide support elements for the SMEs to make the digital transition. Some issues external to SMEs, such as those related to data exchange and the market power of big data companies, need to be addressed. As in the case of the Green Deal, support to SMEs should be based on a wide range of social and economic actors, public and private. All the measures approved by the European Parliament and defended by the People's Party represent the right basis on which to build a credible, ambitious plan to guarantee recovery from this crisis. We consider that the protection of employment and the of SMEs and startups at risk of insolvency should be subject to special measures. In addition, the new multi-annual financial framework and the recovery plan should prioritize support to SMEs, especially in the current circumstance. There is a need for further simplification, which necessarily involves the generalization of points of single contact, e-government. In the current situation, it is important to continue reducing the necessary time and cost for creating an enterprise. And administrative simplification and electronic management should also be aimed at facilitating access to public contracts for SMEs. Other important elements for our enterprise are internationalization and the search for new external markets. There is a need to improve the environment for business creation and to strengthen entrepreneurship, including through education in schools. Lastly, in relation to the labor market, the Commission and the European Union member states should launch initiatives to identify labor market gaps through education, vocational training, and skills development strategies targeted at SMEs. So to conclude, to overcome the economic crisis, we need to protect our SMEs and save the largest number of them. To this end, member states should submit high-quality national recovery plans with good projects, ensuring a good use of the funds and targeting SMEs as a priority. From the European Parliament and especially from the EPP group, I'm a member of this EPP group, it is very clear that SMEs are the fundamental part of our economy. They employ the majority of people in the European Union, serve our citizens where large and not rich, and are mostly owned by Europeans and do not relocate in third countries. So we need SMEs, and we are going to protect with this new strategy and with all these new tools like the recovery fund. So we must therefore protect them, and we will do it, and I'm sure that we will do it together with all the stakeholders like you. So thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and whenever you need from the European Parliament and from the EPP, I'm here, of course. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dolores. Very interesting, very interesting speech and point of view. Thank you so much for sharing with us your opinion. I don't know if you have time for one question. It's
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
No, it's only to highlight one point more. For example, I would like to hear to you. Of course, your speech was fine. For us, it's very important. We have to take note. We will continue to speak with you, but I would like that you share with us 3 or 4 key points or advice about SMA that we must pay attention in your opinion. No, what is the 3 or key point that you because I know that you have a very high experience in these matters. Your position is a very good position because you can see the other stakeholders, and we would like you can share with us these 3 or 4 points that you think is important to pay attention in the next period.
I think so that now, the COVID gives us opportunity. I know that the COVID is a big disaster for all of us, for all of our families, our SMEs, and all our economy, and it's a big impact, social impact, health impact, and economic impact. But now the European Union, with all their 3 institutions, the Parliament, the Council, and the Commission, we arrive in a huge agree that it's this recovery fund or resilience recovery fund that give us a big opportunity, and give us a big opportunity for SMEs, because the COVID push really quick the transition that we were doing before the COVID. But perhaps before the COVID, we would do it, this transition to the digitalization decade and the Green Deal decade in 10, 20 years. So now perhaps, the COVID pushed us really fast and really quick to do this transition in just, in a short period. So I think that it's a big opportunity that the SMEs, they have an opportunity to catch a lot of funds of these recovery and resilience funds to do very well this transition to the digitalization and to the green economy. Always I'm saying that, before 20 years ago, we were thinking to create a product, then to buy this product, and then, this product, it was, we put it on the, it was not a resource. So now we create a product, we buy this product, and now this product we are not taking out. So it's a resource for Europe. This is the circular economy. So now we have a lot of opportunities, and you, like a big association in Europe, you have opportunities to help the SMEs to do this transition, because there is a lot of funds to do this transition. And the EPP party, we want you to catch these funds too, not just the big companies that, of course, that they have to have it, but we have to help the SMEs, because the SMEs are the companies that they are creating jobs in Europe. And we want to modernize our economy in Europe. We want a more resilient economy, but more competitive economy. So we have to help the SMEs to have this new know-how in this transition, digitalization and circular economy. And I think so that, the most important thing that we have in our SMEs. I'm a daughter of, my father has an SMEs, and it was founded by my grandfather in 1940. And so, I know that, the best thing that has Europe in the economy is our SMEs, that in all the time they are innovating, they are creating a new products, and we have a really high quality product. So now this recovery and resilience funds, it's a big opportunity for all these SMEs to do this transition, and in 1-2 years to be again in the top in all world, not just in Europe, and in the top to creating a new jobs for everybody, and Europe has to be again, this part of the world that there is the opportunity. We have an economy that is solidarity, sustainable, and resilient and competitive. So I think so that the point now in this next 5 years, it's to help them to do this transition, digitalization, and the circular or green economy. We have to help them because we cannot leave behind any SMEs because they didn't do the transition. So perhaps, my point, perhaps I would focus on that.
Okay, thank you so much, Dolores. I know that you are very busy, and thank you so much for that you have decided spending your time with us. I am sure that my colleagues and we are very, very happy to hear to you your support for SMEs, for SMPs, and about digitalization. I think it's a good luck that you had this point of view. I am sure that we will in touch in the future. Thank you so much, Dolores.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
I can be with you 30 more minutes, so I'm going to turn off the video and the micro, but I'm going to be here hearing you. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dolores. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Now, our director, Paul Thompson, he will continue with the next point. Paul, please.
Thank you, Salvador. Thank you, Dolores. Fantastic introduction to our event today. Well, now we have a panel discussion, and but by way of introduction to this panel discussion, I just want to reflect on the fact that here in the United States, where I'm presently speaking to you from, many of you in Europe may have noticed the recently deceased US Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She passed away a couple of months ago, and she was a real icon on the US Supreme Court, and she was once asked when there will be enough women on the United States Supreme Court, and she said when all 9 seats are filled by female judges. Well, today I'm pleased and proud to say that IFA has an all-female lineup. We've had a keynote presenter, Dolores, and we have a panel discussion with three women who are very much at the forefront of their respective organizations. So I'd like you to please welcome Birgit, Veronique and Monica. Now I'd like to just say a few words of introduction about each of them and mention a few words about how we're going to run this particular panel discussion. Full bios, of course, of each of the speakers you can find in the email that was sent to you with the registration details. We have first off Birgit. She is the head of unit at DigiGrow. DigiGrow is the Commission's Directorate General for Internal Market, Industry, Entrepreneurship and SMEs. DigiGrow is responsible for the European Union's policy on the single market, industry, entrepreneurship and small businesses. We also have Veronique. She's the SecGen of SME United. That's the Association of Crafts and SMEs in Europe, with around 70 member organizations from some 30 European countries. And third, we have Monica. Monica is the chair of the International Federation of Accountants Small and Medium Practices Advisory Group. Monica's day job is a partner at Confidor, which is an accounting, tax and law firm with offices in Porto Alegre and Sao Paulo in Brazil. Now I'm going to be asking each of the presenters to give us 3 short presentations. That will be followed with a very short intervention from UIPO, and then we'll have a panel discussion. And last but not least, there'll be an opportunity for all of you to weigh in with any questions that you might have by typing them into the chat box. So our first speaker, Birgit, if I can ask you to present describe for us the European Union's SME strategy and how it's designed to help SMEs recover and build back better digitally and sustainably post-crisis.
Good morning, and thanks a lot for having me at this event. Yeah, I'm happy to present to you what the SME strategy can do in this really difficult time for SMEs. And I have to say I'm very grateful to Dolores Montserrat, who has already given you the broader framework and also an idea about what the strategy is about. If I can have the next slide, please. In fact, the SME strategy was adopted on 10th of March. And I think about 2 or 3 days later, whole Europe kind of was fully hit by the crisis and went into a lockdown. So the strategy was not necessarily designed with the crisis in mind, but it has a lot of elements that we see will be extremely helpful and useful to really manage this long-term recovery from this extreme shock. We have been able to use certain elements of the strategy already during the crisis to help out companies. And so we also see it's very flexible, and of course we will also adapt it to the crisis situation. We will prioritize certain actions. We will also adjust them to this to the crisis context, of course. But the key point why we think that the strategy is really going to play a key role in the recovery is, and it has been mentioned, it really has this focus on supporting companies to make the transition from to becoming more green to becoming more digital. We have all seen how important digital is now in these times. And also we want the comeback after the crisis. We want it also to be green. There will be no turning back to normal. The new reality will look different. And here the strategy really is a kind of change management tool, if we want to put it in that way, because it has a lot of elements that will help companies in that change. If I can have the next slide, please. So as I said, the overarching topic of the SME strategy is really to support this transition. And in that area, we have a lot of different measures foreseen, also to address the needs of the different companies. Because, and it was mentioned also by Dolores, there are these really innovative companies, SMEs outside, who are really drivers of this transition. They are bringing new technologies in the green, in the digital area. So they need support, for example, to how they can roll out their innovations, how they can protect intellectual property and so on. And there are a lot of actions in this pillar. We also have measures for the companies who are a bit struggling with this transition, who are not yet secure in which technologies should I invest, what are the best solutions, how can I become more green. And also here we have a lot of actions, like for example, our European Enterprise Network will build up a service of sustainability advisors. And we also will expand the digital innovation hubs to also provide, I would say, more ground basic services to show companies how innovation can make their business processes more efficient. And I also think that here is a big role also for the SMPs. Dolores had talked about a lot of things here, so I might probably go to the other 2 pillars, access to finance and cutting red tape, access to markets pillar, because these are also pillars that will, how should I say, will be very important also to address the long-term resilience of our companies, because they are there to combat impediments that SMEs are facing for a long time. Access to finance has always been a problem for small companies. They don't have the necessary collateral. So here we have a couple of instruments again, also a bit differentiated according to the needs. InvestEU will be important for SME bank lending, but we also have other instruments that are more interesting for companies that are wishing to expand fast, the startups and scale-ups and so on. So here it will be important also for, I think, your services to understand what are the different tools and how can they best be used. And the third pillar about market access and cutting red tape is also very important, because we know that one of the biggest impediments for SMEs is regulatory burden, fighting with reporting requirements, and this will become, I would say, here we have to be very vigilant, because of course with the Green Deal we will see a lot of more reporting. You have mentioned non-financial reporting in the beginning. I think your president has. So that will be a major action in the SME strategy. And then are two other points that I would like to talk to you a bit longer. This is fighting late payments, and also then our early warning mechanism that we will have put into the strategy to accompany companies who are in distress and those who might face insolvency. And I think these two actions are quite important in this crisis context. Can I have the next slide, please? I have mentioned late payments to you. Late payments is a really huge problem for small and medium companies. We know in the EU, 1 out of 4 bankruptcies is due to being paid late. So it's not because somebody is bad in his business model and so on, it's just because he doesn't get paid for a service, for a good that he has delivered. And to show you also the potential, in France, for example, we have figures. If every supplier would be paid in time, that would generate an additional liquidity, additional cash flow of 19 billion euros. So this issue is extremely important in the crisis context, in the COVID crisis context, because we have seen that the problem has been aggravating with COVID. So the rate of unpaid invoices are shooting in several countries, and it's really a big problem for having keeping the liquidity level of companies. So what we are planning to do, on the one hand, we want to push the public sector, because they have to be a good example in these areas, and unfortunately it's often the public sector that pays late. So here we will work with infringement proceedings, but then we have the big problem of the B2B sector. And here it is very often also enforcement is the big issue here, because in the end companies have to go to court to get their money. And if you have, I would say, an unbalanced market power, this is a real problem for companies. So what we want to do in that area is to set up a late payment a payment observatory, I have to say. The idea is that we will here observe payment behaviors in various sectors to understand how quick are payments made, what are the usual payment delays, but also to understand why, if there are big delays, why is it? So we want to put the spotlight on certain practices, and we want to create an awareness that such practices are creating collateral, collective damage. In addition to that, we also want to set up a dispute settlement resolution that can be faster than going to court. And the advantage of such systems is to leave behind broken relationships, I would say, because here you find a common understanding. So this is an area that might be also of great interest to you, because also other issues is here. Another issue that your group might be quite interested in is how can I support SMEs in payment management, invoice management, keeping track, maybe go to electronic invoicing and so on. So here I see a big potential to make our companies resilient for the future. And then a second element that I wanted to point out is the support that we try to give to companies in distress and companies that might face insolvency. Can I have the next slide, please? So unfortunately, with the crisis, we will face more insolvencies. It's a reality that we will have to face. You can see that there is a forecast that predicts an increase by 26%, which is quite considerable. So very important that we have in place good and effective restructuring and insolvency procedures. And the member states are just about to implement the new insolvency framework that has been put into place by the EU. And here, in this context, there is also an important element, that is the early warning. The early warning is a mechanism to already address the problems when they are arising, see what can be done, what can be the best way out, probably to avoid an insolvency, and if this is not a problem, to make sure that you go relatively fast through an insolvency procedure, because insolvency, we have heard it can happen, but it's then also the chance for a new start. And that will be also important to make our companies much more resilient. Yeah, early warning, extremely important here. It's really a very comprehensive service that is not just about advising on the financial issues and so on, but also takes a broader look and also accompanies entrepreneurs on a psychological side, I would say, because it has been mentioned, it's a huge distress for someone, also for the consequences for the family and so on. So, and here we also hope very much that the member states make use of the national recovery plans and the funds that will be made available to them to expand these services, these early warning services, and to put them at the disposal of SMEs. And again, here also, I think a big role for your profession to support SMEs in such a situation. So I'm stopping here. I might have a bit gone beyond my time, but I hope it was interesting.
It certainly was very interesting, Birgit. Thank you so much. And I think it was particularly useful for us and the SMPs that are on the call today to hear some very specific ways in which they can assist SMEs. You mentioned on your final slide, early warning, one particular area, helping them sort of build back better. So that was a great introduction, and thank you very much. I'd now like to turn to our second speaker, Veronique, who's going to share the challenges and opportunities that are facing SMEs, and some specific ways in which SMPs can help them come back better after this crisis. So Veronique, over to you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. And first, I would like to say I'm very happy to join and share the views of SME United on the role of SMPs in the implementation of the SME strategy. I would also like to thank you for the invitation to the panel today. After Birgit proposing or introducing the SME strategy, I would like to first highlight that SME United back in March welcomed the SME strategy, and now more than ever, the right framework is very important given the challenges SMEs are facing. Before I go into those challenges, I would like to repeat that we know that the Commission will not revise the strategy. We also understand because they have put a lot of time in it and it's fit for what the challenges are coming up. But as Birgit already highlighted during her presentation, some elements of the strategy might require more priority at the beginning of the policy cycle rather than others. For instance, SME access to finance. For us, at the moment, the strategy was put forward in March. Wasn't that high of a priority. I mean, it's still a priority, but it was not the top one priority anymore. That was finding skilled staff. Now that the situation for SMEs across Europe has completely changed, of course. So that's a first thing, that on some elements, reprioritization is necessary, and that's also what we see the Commission doing with their actions at the moment. Then the first challenge, and that's maybe more an introduction to the challenges that SMEs face at the moment. I believe you all know that SMEs are very severely impacted by the crisis. Our SME United barometer has shown that SME confidence has dropped to its all-time low of 54.6 points. Sanitary measures have placed many of the SMEs to close down. They have been confronted with a huge number of staff often being sick or in quarantine, disruptions in their value chains, in their supply chains, leading to liquidity shortages, and at the moment, as Birgit also mentioned, many of them risk insolvency more and more. The early warning program that Birgit mentioned for us is a very important step, certainly now, to help SMEs in difficulties to turn around their situation and find ways to keep the viable companies alive. And I'm also very happy that EFA has joined the network, the Early Warning Europe network now, to get those mechanisms set up across Europe in the different member states. Moreover, I think what we also need to highlight is that the strategy was published at a moment along with the industrial strategy, and that we also would like to see the strategic policy approach from the industrial strategy on digitalization and greening be a basis for the SME actions on that one. The main challenges that I put forward on this slide now, the first one is rebuilding the investment capacity. As I mentioned, many of our SMEs, 40% to be exact, during the lockdown in spring, highlighted that they had liquidity shortages that they were confronted with. The Commission immediately reacted with several measures in spring, and now also proposed to have a solvency support instrument in place, which unfortunately was cut out of the proposal by the Council. So it will be crucial now that we get all those instruments on the ground to those SMEs. That can be done in several ways. The role of the SMPs, I will get back to that later on. But we also call on the member states to take up those measures in their national recovery and resilience plans, especially certainly making the necessary solvency support instruments, as it has been taken on board in the Recovery and Resilience Fund and has been cut out of the Next Generation EU in general, the solvency support instrument. So rebuilding that investment capacity, rebuilding the capital, the own resources of our SMEs will be a core element for the next year or 2 years. Then the second challenge is tackling the twin transition. On the one hand, the digitalization, on the other hand, the greening of the economy. And on digitalization, as well as on greening the economy, for us, it's really important that we raise awareness on the opportunities both transitions can offer to SMEs. It's not only a danger or something negative, it can also bring them opportunities. And it's very important that we can show that. Therefore, we need to work together with SME organizations, the Enterprise Europe Network, and other actors on the ground, for instance, clusters, to show SMEs as much as possible what opportunities they can find. Along with that awareness raising, of course, we need to provide them with the necessary tools to transform their business into a digital and a green company. And there we see, on the one hand, the need for support on knowing the digital tools, knowing the possibilities of green transformation, but also providing the necessary financial schemes, for instance, through digital vouchers, by advice that is supported on the transition. And then especially for digitalization, we also need the regulatory framework, the Digital Single Market Act, the Digital Services Act, the Data Policy Act. They all need to underpin a level playing field for small and medium-sized enterprises across the European Union so that they can compete in a fair way with other actors, bigger companies in the market. For the green transition, we also would like to highlight the importance of taking into account the cumulative impact of new obligations for SMEs. And we call for a due diligence, a very thorough SME test on all the new legislation that has been announced within the Green Deal and the climate law for next year. And then again, also there, we need to make sure that, for instance, the sustainability advisors that have been announced in the SME strategy to cooperate within the Enterprise Europe network, that they find a good link with the SME organizations at national, local and regional level so that they can really get to SMEs and support them in a good way. A third SME challenge that I put forward here is upskilling and reskilling. Of course, with the whole transition to a digital and green economy, a lot of new requirements, a lot of new skills have to be acquired. And there we see that as well for workers as for entrepreneurs, a lot still needs to be done. Digital literacy, for instance, will be a key element to be able to continue working in the new economy. And I think we've all encountered some challenges the past few months with new digital tools, conference tools, online meeting tools, where we needed to find out how these things work. And it was really a massive on-the-job training across Europe for telework and online conferencing. But there are many other skills that our entrepreneurs need to require. For instance, if you want to go into e-commerce, you can have a lot of information on your customers through the data that is put forward by platforms. But of course, you need to be able to work with that data. You need to be able to know how you acquire them, etc., etc. And also the soft skills, the entrepreneurial skills, get an increased importance. Being able to see a possible long-term vision, putting that in a creative plan, implementing this. These are all entrepreneurial skills that are not only required anymore for entrepreneurs, but even more also for their workers. And then the final challenge is the room for entrepreneurship. And there I would like to go back to what Birgit highlighted on the red tape. We need to create an environment that leaves time for our entrepreneurs to do what they do best, and that is making their enterprise grow, making customers happy, and not wasting too much time on administrative burdens and regulatory compliance. Then I would like to go to the next slide. How can SMPs contribute to hold this transition of SMEs across the European Union? At first, I would say continue their role as a trusted advisor. When SMEs have issues, they go to their network, their close network of advisors, and the accountant certainly is one of them. So we need to make sure that the accountants are well equipped to find appropriate support for the SMEs, and for instance also refer to early warning schemes, etc., if there is an issue. Which moves me immediately to the second point, and that's the referral. As a small and medium-sized practitioner, it's important that you have a network where you can send entrepreneurs to if they have, for instance, questions on digitalization, if they have questions on how to transform their business to a greener company. You need to make sure that you can help them in finding the right tools and support mechanisms. And then finally, that small and medium practitioner, that accountant or auditor, also needs to develop themselves. They need to become an open digital and network environment, meaning that for the accountants and auditors, the same challenges apply as for SMEs. They need to make sure that they set the example, work digital, build a good network of trusted advisors, and that will be a main challenge, I think, also for them. And we can go to the next slide. on how we move forward, and that's especially a call for the SME strategy. We ask for a concrete implementation plan, a roadmap with a timeline, with milestones, and a link also to the recovery program, because there needs to be a budget in place to support the actions that are put forward. And then what we feel is also crucial is a strong commitment and involvement, not only of the European institutions, because we know that they're there at the moment, but also the national, regional and local authorities. So we really need to align the actions that are taken at the European, national, regional and local level, and also ensure the active involvement of the SME community. The SME organizations where entrepreneurs turn to first, but also, for instance, the SMPs, clusters, Enterprise Europe Network, etc., to make sure that whatever is being developed at the European level or even national or regional level, that it really reaches SMEs on the ground and helps them to make our ambitious objectives a reality for everybody across the European Union. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Veronique. What I found particularly useful in your presentation there was your slide when you referred to the role of the SMPs. I think quite rightly you stressed the importance of their role as being the trusted business advisor, working in partnership, if you will, with their SME clients, helping them navigate difficulties and build back better after this coronavirus pandemic. And I think it was great also to hear your recommendations on how they should operate a referral model, helping the SMEs connect with the appropriate experts, whether that be digital or for sustainable business practice. And finally, you mentioned, or you challenged them to be, I think quite rightly, open, digital and network. So it's very useful to hear from a representative of the SMEs how they feel their vision for the SMP of the future. And with that, I think it's a good segue into Monica Forster's presentation. Monica, she is, as I've already mentioned, a partner of an accounting, tax and law firm. And Monica, we've set you the challenge of talking about how small and medium practices can transform in the future if they are to be able to step up and be this trusted business advisor to the SME. So over to you, Monica.
Thank you, Paul. First of all, it's a great pleasure to join EFAA virtual event. And I have been asked to focus on IFAC's vision for the future of SMPs, including how to transform their practice so as for them to be more efficient and effective as trusted business advisors. In the prior speeches, we already heard a lot of great suggestions, a lot of great topics. So I'll try to bring on the daily practice, how can we do that, and which are the key themes we need to focus on to be future focused and to be really prepared to continue and to improve as a profession. Next slide, please. So on that sense, I'll use a publication that IFAC issued recently that basically concentrates this main areas of focus. IFAC launched the Practice Transformation Action Plan, a roadmap to the future, earlier this year. The short publication, it has about 18 pages, was prepared with input and guidance from our SMP advisory group and captures messages and actions under 4 themes for firms to consider evolving to be future ready. It is recognized that every firm will be different and the level of action to transform will depend on a range of factors, including the life cycle of the practice, the partner's motivation, the size and services that are provided, the firm's location, and the type and number of clients. So adjustments might be needed depending on these characteristics. There is some overlap between the areas and the core and knowledge that change in the new constant. The future requires an open, agile mindset, a new and increased emphasis on continuous improvement, and a mindset of embracing rapid change. For example, we need to consider clients' expectations, clients' demand, understand what they really want, what they really need. And this is changing. This is not the same as it used to be some years or even some months ago. A key competency in the future will be exactly this ability to see and anticipate trends on the horizon and advise our clients on the implications of those trends properly. Next slide, please. So briefly focusing now on these areas. The first, obviously, this is what we have been facing and dealing with more than ever due to the pandemic, relates to technology. The pace of change from technology is unprecedented and is presenting significant challenges, but also opportunities for SMPs. Firms who don't keep pace with technological advancements have a real risk of being left behind. Frequently, we hear about firms and practitioners that will lose their floor, will lose the opportunity to be active. This is something we need to focus. One of the key aspects that need to be considered on that sense is to be technologically prepared for that. So embracing technology is important to improve practice efficiencies, enhance how clients are serviced, as well as expand the range of services provided. On that sense, in the publication, we have outlined 5 key initiatives to successfully adopt and embed technology, which include the ones mentioned here. I'll only briefly speak about them to give an initial reference. So first, to conduct an environmental scan. What does it mean? To consider what is happening in the world and how it affects the practice. How can technology effectively improve the efficiencies, the productivity, the quality? How can technology reduces and lower the costs, attract staff, because we know that maybe the new generations are attracted by technology, and maintain and add new clients? What can be automated? The second point refers to aligning with the long-term strategy and formulate a realistic implementation plan. What does that mean? That means to identify which technology is best aligned with the overall strategy, and that needs to focus on the business needs, on the available budget, because resources are relevant to the decision taking, and marketplace opportunities. Third, adopt the cloud. This is something that appears to be in the future some months ago. Right now, with the pandemic and with the home office structure, mainly due to the lockdown limitations, it basically became our today. We are using cloud as a key part in it. It is more safe than only home equipment. However, we do need to focus on security aspects, on keeping appropriately the data from the clients using the cloud. Fourth, involve clients in technology decisions. It has some aspects involved here. The clients want to hear about the development that can save time and money. And they want to be working with firms with forward thinking. So we need to be future focused. On that sense, it's important to really have a great communication with the clients to make sure that we really understand what they need and what might be applied from a technological perspective in their reality. And last but not least, in relation to technology, identify and support an internal technology champion. Staff should be empowered to follow technology trends and inform the firm about possible future opportunities and challenges. Technology alone will not improve the practice and transformation needs other aspects than technology. It needs to be part of an overall new change management approach. So based on that, I'll be focusing now on the other 2 aspects that we need to focus to be future prepared. Next slide, please. Future ready, as I mentioned, is not only related to technology. It needs to focus further, and that includes focusing on talent management. So staff are the most valuable asset of any firm. The successful firms of the future consider aspects on, for example, flexible working, and are focused on building an attractive work culture and work-life balance for their highly valued employees. Staff expectations were changing before the pandemic and now more than ever. Firms need to show staff that they can have an interesting and varied career inside the firms in small practices and have flexibility on how and where they operate. Investment in talent management should be a top priority, and on that sense, I bring here 5 important aspects on that. First, to offer ongoing learning and continuous development. So it's not about technical update. It's about digital skills. It's about remaining current. It's about training the accountants for the future through the development of new skills and competencies for the digital economy. This is something that was already mentioned, so I won't enter into details, but we need to have our practitioners prepared for that. Empower staff to innovate. All staff inside the firm should be encouraged to provide suggestions for potential new services and how to best use technology. That means we need to give opportunity for all levels of staff, juniors from starters to the partners, to really pay attention and know what is going on, what is available, what can be focused on. Engage in transparent career progression conversations. We do know that the professionals, the practitioners today, mainly the new generation, do focus on having a transparent reference of the possibilities of their careers. So it's not anymore about annual reviews. It's about a continuous ongoing feedback. It's about keeping a conversation all the time. Introduce flex time. The new model of talent management is flexible, is varied, which includes the opportunity to work remotely. This is an opportunity, and indeed, this is something we were forced to, considering the pandemic. And we know that there might be some restrictions in some jurisdictions in relation to flex time, but the firms and mainly the SMPs need to focus on what they can do to really have something developed on that sense. Use a variety of recruitment techniques. We cannot continue using only the past old techniques we used to adopt. So if you want to attract young talent employees, we do need to focus on having this different recruitment techniques. We need to be future focused only, also in the recruitment routine. That includes, and that's unusual for SMPs, that all firms today are expected to be active on social media. Not having a presence is a significant missed opportunity, and we know that for SMPs, this is still a challenge. Next slide. Last but not least, the third area relates to building advisory services. We know that these are stressful times for SMEs. They will need support from their trusted advisors more than ever. There is also an opportunity for firms to evolve their operating model and build advisory services. On that sense, here there's 5 initiatives to adapt the firm model and build advisory services. First, move from transactional to strategic services. If we want to add value to our clients, if we want to make the difference, it's not about only operational bureaucratic activities. We need to focus on strategy. We need to support our SME clients on strategy. Second, reevaluate the services provided and marketing strategies. What does it mean? Opportunities are emerging for those accountants who broadened their skill set and become qualified in other aligned areas, so they can meet shifting clients' demands and needs for new services. So forget doing only those basic activities that we used to render in the past. We need to be prepared to other services. We need to reevaluate and the control and the accompaniment of the new trends. The third, move into a niche market. This is something we should speak already in the past. The adoption of a niche market optimizes the routines, optimizes the services, and specialization could be a way forward. Use networks, associations, and alliances to add values. What is the value of joining these networks, associations? Is to, for example, access training, assess developments, and new tools, new resources, but also to get references, to keep an international global contact to render the services. And last, but certainly not least, this is a very important topic, conduct a regular strategic review. It is important to periodically review the firm's strategy, structure, services, culture, and operating model. This is important given the pace of change. What we were considering to be the best alternative might not be the best alternative anymore with all changes that are happening. So focusing on these three areas, technology, on teams and keep them mobilized, and on building other services, mainly advisory services, SMPs can continue and improve to be future focused and really represent something different and really add value, not only to the SME clients, but to the market in general. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Monica. I think it was a fantastic recap on IFAC's vision for the future SMP, and you've explained using the IFAC's Practice Transformation Action Plan how SMPs can make that transition to be the trusted business advisor with digital skills, with the right people, and in so doing become much more effective in their service and support of SMEs who right now really need the support of competent business advisors. Just for the purpose of those on the call, IFAC's Practice Transformation Action Plan is up on their website at ifac.org, and I believe that it's already been translated into a number of other languages, including French and Spanish. That is available for free download from their website. Now, before we hope to have about sort of 15 minutes or just short of that for some Q&A. But before we have a Q&A, I'd like to ask Rochelle Spijkerman. She's the SME Program Manager at the European Union's Intellectual Property Office to say a few words. IFA recently signed a Memorandum of Understanding with UIPO. And as you can see, SMPs potentially can play a key role in helping SMEs manage their intellectual property. Over to you, Rochelle.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Paul, for this invitation to be here today, and good morning, everyone. So from the IPO, from the European Intellectual Property Office, we too are joining now the challenge of finding new ways of delivering added value to businesses, better supporting SMEs. Indeed, SMEs, who are the backbone of the EU economy, we've stressed it several occasions now today, require even more in these uncertain times help. The European Commission envisioned a role to the IPO to put intellectual property at the service of SMEs and to foster innovation and growth, and therefore a number of initiatives to support SMEs through their startup and scale-up journeys. In this context, in July this year, the IPO, within its new strategic plan SP 2025, has launched a dedicated program for SMEs under the brand Ideas Powered for Business. A key component of this program is indeed the collaboration and the development of a supportive network within the SME ecosystem. And within this context, we are very happy, Paul, as you mentioned, to have signed recently a collaboration agreement with IFA, with whom we will now partner to jointly encourage activities and services to support small and medium enterprises and help foster this innovation and growth and new added value businesses potentially for SMPs. I'd like to give you a bit of a background of why we're doing this and where we see the role of the SMPs in this area, because intellectual property is a key driver innovation and growth. It's a tool that can enhance SMEs' competitive advantage in the market. A joint study that we did with the EPO in 2019 really showed how SMEs that have registered at least one intellectual property rights are more likely to experience growth and achieve annual increases in turnover. Nevertheless, it's actually the large film firms that are making use of it. They register 4 times more intellectual property rights than SMEs actually do. We performed a study in 2019, it's the SME scoreboard, to see what the main reason was why SMEs were not protecting their intellectual property assets and registering IP, and it was lack of knowledge and lack of information. Very interesting in this study, we when asking to whom business owners are turning to, those who have not registered IP rights, who they turn to, the study showed that the most used source of information for business development was the SMPs after the internet search. So from the IPO, we really see there is an opportunity to do things differently. We need to reach out to SMEs, we need to speak their language in non-legalistic terms, and really be part of their ecosystem. And business owners turn to their trusted advisors, to their SMPs when they need advice about running their business. So I'm in line with Veronique's comments on the capacity of SMPs to act as referrals, and Monica's comments on building advisory services. We really believe SMPs can be a point of contact and can guide their SME clients also on intellectual property matters, referring them and pointing them into the right direction at the right stage of the business life cycle those SMEs are in. So in times of COVID, this is a slide of UIPO's extra effort that have in launching a series of initiatives to directly support SMEs under the brand Ideas Powered for Business. In this hub, which you can find on the website, we have, for instance, are giving direct information about intellectual property, and we now have also have access to pro bono. We're offering free legal advice from law firms coming from 26 countries, and more than 170 SMEs have already made use of this free advice. So which we thank IFA also for sharing this among their members. So thank you, Paul.
Yeah, and thank you, Rochelle. I think it is very useful to hear from you about potentially a new service offering by small and medium-sized practices. Monica, during her presentation, talked about the need for small and medium practices to offer new and different types of services, as well as change the way in which they operate. So it was good to hear from you. Here is a very good example where SMPs can offer advice to their SME clients on intellectual property, how to manage, monitor, and monetize it. So thank you very much. We don't have a huge amount of time for our panel discussion. I do have a few questions up my sleeve that I can pose, but I would encourage if somebody wants to weigh in with a question, and I can see straight away that I've already got somebody. Luca Brussati is IFA's special advisor, and I see, Luca, that you've put up your hand, so if we can unmute you and get you to pose your question to the panel.
I liked a lot what I heard, but can I be blunt on one point which I consider very important? So I hope, you know, this is politically correct, and I believe, you know, I really, you know, based on my familiarity with the world of SMEs, especially in Italy and a bit in other countries as well, I feel that the label is less and less suitable to understand the complexity of the world. because we are packaging under the same level small enterprises and medium enterprises. And I believe that to all what we heard does not apply to small enterprises. For one reason, from my standpoint, which obviously I'm not the holder of the truth, but in my experience, small enterprises have limited strategic viability. For three reasons. I mean, either they are serving a very localized market. Okay, so as long as they are not bothered by foreign competitors, they survive. As long as foreign competitor arrives, then they are in a difficult situation. Or they exist, but they are de facto a hostage to a larger company. So they are a capacity supplier, not a viable standalone entity. Convenient in case, so they survive in as much as they are convenient to externalize some extra work for larger companies. Or they survive because there are favorable legislation that prevents serious competition so they can stay in business. As long, for whatever reason, this legislation disappears, their survival is largely endangered. Many of the points that were suggested by the speakers were about strengthening strategic orientation. Obviously, I agree 100% on this point, but I see two serious problems in this respect. First, these organizations often don't really know their market because they are so small that they cannot have a direct sales force. So they are relying on agents. So by definition, they don't know who are their customers. Okay. Secondly, if we stick to the basics, okay, how do I compete? Either I lower costs or I differentiate my service. Okay. Lowering costs is complicated because they are too small. Differentiating is impossible if you don't know the market. Okay, so I believe that all the topics that were discussed up until now, and all the practical suggestions and all the relevant services, etc., are very important for medium enterprises. In my experience, only few small enterprises would really benefit out of these investments. So there might be a need to focus on where our support can have a longer term impact.
Thank you, Luca. And for the benefit of those on the call, Luca is a professor of management in northeastern Italy. So he's clearly got very firm opinions, but those firm opinions are predicated on, I'm sure, substantial evidence. Salvador, I noticed that, that you've popped up again, but I noticed that Veronique would like to respond, I assume, to what Luca has just said.
We very well know that 93% of all companies in Europe have less than 10 employees, and I also know in which way they have to work then, because those entrepreneurs are working day in, day night with their team to provide quality products and services to their customers, and don't always have time for strategic thinking even. Nevertheless, most of those companies are also providing in day-to-day needs in rural areas across the European Union and are of crucial importance for local employment. So I do think that it's the responsibility of local authorities, regional authorities, and SME organizations to make sure that also they can make their transition maybe in a more limited way and not the wow transition, but nevertheless that they can also take action and continue as existing in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Veronique. I wasn't sure whether Birgit or Monica wanted to say anything in relation to Luca's question or statement. If you do, please do feel free to weigh in, Birgit.
Yes, I would briefly want to come in. It's true that there are a lot of really these micro enterprises out there, and they may have a very restricted market or depend exclusively on one customer. But I think that also here they have to rethink their business model. And I think generally what we see, I haven't mentioned it in my presentation, but I heard it strongly in the others. I think in the future, companies will need to cooperate more with others. And this will be particularly important for the small ones, also in a local context. And you see this already happening. You see that if you take, for example, the rural examples, where you see networks in a way, how the local businesses supply each other, they complement each other. It can happen, and I think this is a process that will become valid for all of them, or for most of them. It's what was also mentioned, that this being part of a network, being part of an alliance will become much more important in future business models. And you will not only go on your own, you will be part of a network. And that is very much also, I think, this logic there, where the Commission wants to come in on creating this, or strengthening, I would say, the ecosystems, the 14 ecosystems in Europe. So a more collaborative approach will be, I think, key, and this even is valid for the smallest ones, for our micros.
Thank you, Birgit. Monica, do you think the same applies to SMPs? Because of course SMPs are small and medium-sized entities. They just happen to be in the accountancy sector.
Yes, yeah, Paul, I do believe that applies, and probably I personally agree with what was mentioned, but we know, and this was just very well mentioned by Birgit, the trend is to modify the format of the work, of the practices, and the way the firms operate and work. This is something that from a global perspective is already being observed. So probably it's not an ideal solution, but it's a way to evolve, it's a way to change. In all different areas, we do need to readjust, reinvent ourselves, and that applies also to SMPs. So I agree, it's hard that we do limited resources on all possible aspects, and we need to join efforts formally or perhaps informally, depending on partnerships or on whatsoever, to make sure that we can not only survive, but keep the best service we can render, and even increase our sizes and the quality of what we are doing.
Thank you so much, Monica, and thank you to the panel, who have been great presenters today, and I think have responded quite eloquently to Luca's question. I'm really sorry that we haven't had a lot more time to discuss. I think we could spend all day discussing these issues, but I'm afraid time is short, so I have to thank you all and hand over to Salvador Marin, IFA President, to say a few closing words. Salva.
Thank you so much, Paul. Many thanks to all the participants and excellent speaker. I think that IFA has been very lucky, and the intervention have been fantastic. Thank you so much for that. The common thread has been clear. SME strategy, SMPs, recovery. Can you see that? Recovery, how to SMEs, financing, priorities, digitalization, access to finance, funds for the recovery, new services, trusted advisor. This slide from the that how you use are fantastic for that, and this intervention were fantastic. For that reason, I think that we need to think that we need to continue with our work, because it's clear that when you already have the original, it doesn't seem smart to arrogate something to which you do not dedicate time, nor are you going to dedicate it. If someone has been close to SMEs, is going to be, they are our members. why day to day we are together. If you see the last intervention, even from EU IPO, you can see this sentence that I am sharing with you. It's important not to divert the message at a call from the European Commission and European Parliament and the rest of the organizations that had accompanied us today. EUIPO, SME United for us is very, very important. IFAC too. They know very well that we are going to be with them to ensure that the SMEs have the priority they deserve. And for that, the focus must be unique. I fully agree that we need to spend our time with this stakeholder. These stakeholders are fantastic. I think that we need to put it in the middle of the focus, think small first, smart regulation, and we need to continue with the work, with the activity. You know that IFA is the big boy for SMPs in Europe. SMPs are needed more than ever by SMEs, and always, as Paul mentioned every time, better together in together. Thank you so much for your intervention. Thank you so much, all participants. Keep safe. We will see you soon.